Welcome to the second week of Waiting in Hope, the Advent audio retreat presented by Ignatian Young Adult Ministries, an initiative of the Office of Ignatian Spirituality. If you haven't listened to last week's reflection that invited us to prepare and fast during Advent, not to worry. You can always revisit past audio clips at your convenience. For now, we invite you to pause, breathe deeply, and notice the spirit of life around you, wherever you are, as we explore this week's theme, Waiting in Action, Waiting in the World. This reflection was written by Andy DeVivo, a member of the 2023-2025 virtual cohort of Contemplative Leaders in Action. Whenever I think of the word wait, I get a little anxious. I remember when I was a child, I went to the Department of Motor Vehicles with my dad. He told me we had to arrive there at 8 a.m. Okay, I told him, but how long will it take? A while, was all he said, and I began to feel anxious. We crawled through the lines and spent most of the morning sitting and waiting for our deli counter-style number to be called so we could hand in our documents and receive the magical piece of paper we would file away in our glove box. Thinking back on that memory, I felt anxious because I did not know when that experience would end or when we would accomplish our task. I can't help but think that the early Christians also felt anxious as they awaited the prophecies of their ancestors to come true. As they heard the stories passed down by generations, did they also say, "Okay, but how long will it take?" Since those early Christians were human, they may have had the same emotions I have when someone says, "You just have to wait." As I read and prayed upon the gospel for today, I noticed something that challenged me to think about waiting a little differently. Luke writes, "The word of God came to John, the son of Zechariah, in the desert." That line struck me because even as my faith has strengthened over the years, I might have expected it to say, "The word of God came to the son of Zechariah while he was praying in the temple," or waiting at home, listening intently for his number to be called. I have always associated waiting with being stationary. But maybe what John was doing was waiting with hope. Maybe John was showing us that as Christians, we can be living while we wait for God's call. This kind of waiting allowed John to go out into the desert and strengthen his spirit and body so that he was ready the moment he was called. He showed us a kind of waiting we can do because we know the voice of God can reach us wherever we are. After college, I joined the Jesuit Volunteer Corps and spent 2 years teaching English in a small school in Santiago, Chile. I went because I wanted to be a man for and with others and learn from the Chilean people. But I was also waiting for my call to come. To paraphrase Mary Oliver, I had not yet realized what God was calling me to do with my one wild and precious life after volunteering. Teaching was hard, and I didn't always feel successful, but I loved creating a positive environment for the students in my class and supporting them in growing into the humans they were being called to be. At some point in those 2 years, in the dense metropolis of Santiago, God said to me, "You are meant to be a teacher." Reflecting on it now, after I've been teaching for 12 years, I realized that maybe I was following in John's footsteps by moving into the world and listening to God's call wherever and whenever it came. The lessons I learned in Santiago still influence the person and teacher I am today, even now as I wait for God's next call. I may feel a little anxious sometimes, but I also continue to move forward. I know that if I wait for that call with hope and listen even when I am in the most routine of places, it will come. And in the meantime, I can continue to live a full life. Thank you for joining us for this week's reflection on waiting in action and waiting in the world. Join us next week when we'll contemplate courage, justice, and joy.